Hello, Dave here. This mini morsel, learn JavaScript with me, Intro to Functions. And we're going through the book exercises. The name of the book is Modern JavaScript, Develop and Design. It was written by Larry Ellman. I have no relationship with Larry Ellman other than I purchased his book and I'm learning JavaScript from him. So let's learn together. And if you wish to go any deeper into the book, it's larryullman.com. In chapter 7, start getting into functions. There's 5 exercises in chapter 7. This one, we're going to go dealing with the very first one. And going to basically cover 3 items: the basic function syntax, a little bit about params and arguments, params or arguments, like the same word. I guess us old schooler type people still call it parameters. Uh, the new word, really, it's referred to as arguments. I'm trying to learn. It's just taking a while. So arguments. And finally, we'll talk about our example here, which this chapter 7 date function intro. And again, you'll notice, ooh, look at that. It looks the same as 6, and the output is the exact same. Basically, we took an internal portion of this, the part that actually puts the text into these 2 areas here, and change that to an internal function within the code. So we're actually starting to do some real programming now. So if we look at it, right, I could pick whatever type of method I'm doing, and this is just something playing around the actual book exercise. Just put out today's date. I click my button, and there it is. It shows us what the date is. Here's the JSON formatted date, and that's JavaScript object notation. And once again, that looks the exact same. If I zip back here to the chapter 6 exercises, and we look at the date object, look, it looks the exact same, except for where I changed the text around here. So the function is the same, or the action is the same, and the output is the same. Just changing the code, starting to clean up the code, and that's the beauty of JavaScript, starting to use functions to do repetitive tasks. So let's go back here to chapter 7 exercises and bring that guy up just to keep them up. And once again, all of these exercise values, I'm calling it my JavaScript showcase, is available at davecoast.com. If you go to davecoast.com, you'll see a learning JavaScript here, which will take you to js.davecoast.com. Created a little subdomain for these exercises, and so you can go directly to it by going to js.davecoast.com and going to the chapter 7 exercises. Again, I am working locally on my XAMPP server, and that's why I'm on localhost. And this is my function intro exercise. So step 1, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the syntax behind the function first. So the best way to work with this is using the console. So I'm going to turn on Firebug, and I'll go ahead and detach this. Whoops, I went ahead and maximized it. I just wanted to detach it, but that's fine, and we can work here. You'll notice that I can enter values here, run and clear it, and here's where it'll show me the actual values. So the basic syntax of a function is function name, squirrely brackets, and this is where the parameters or arguments will go, and then the curly brackets. So we got parentheses and curly brackets, and in the curly brackets we actually put our function body. So there's the basic syntax. Once again, the // is a single line comment. So let's go ahead and actually create a function just for the fun of it. Excuse me for a second. Sorry for the stutter. But we have a function, and we put the arguments in here. So let's go ahead and create a test function. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a name, and I'm just going to call this my Dave test function. And I'm going to create argument 1 and argument 2. And again, so these will become variables. Now, when you call this function in the code, and we'll see this later on, but it would be basically function and arg1, comma, arg2. Is how that would actually be called. Now notice since these are in quotes, those are actual strings of text. So this would actually be like string 1 and string 2. Otherwise, in the code, if I created var xyz1 equal some value, I could use xyz1 and send that as the argument without the quotes. So that's basically how you call it. The beautiful thing here is that these arguments can be simple values, which are strings, numbers, and booleans, right? And for example, I could say true, right? There's a boolean, and there's a string value. I could also have an argument with the number 1 or 166, whatever it might be, an actual number. And notice I could call this function, it's only going to use the first 2. JavaScript will not check the type because it's loosely typed, and it will not check the actual number. So those are things that you have to handle yourself inside the function body. Those are more advanced type of items. Right now, we're not going to go there. But let's go ahead and do our little test function here. So I'm calling it Dave test. I'm creating argument 1 and argument 2. So I just basically like created those 2 variables. And in the function body, I'm going to put in var args out is equal to arguments dot length. And the reason I picked that is because with a function, you automatically get a variable, global variable called arguments. And it's like an array. The only thing is you can't modify values in there. But since it is like an array, I can use the length method against it to find out how many arguments I have coming into my function. And we'll see how that works in a moment. So my next function operation is going to be console.log, again, straightforward command to show what's it, to just send a message to the console. How many args? And I'll go ahead and say args out, right? That's the variable I just created. And let's go ahead and give it a line break. And we'll do another command here, create another variable, and I'm going to call this args tote, and I'm going to make that equal to arg1 plus arg2. So if arg1 or arg2 is equal to a string, it's going to concatenate them. If they're both numbers, it will add them together. And let's see what it does. I'll do console.log is equal to, got to put that in quotes, the args tote is space plus args tote plus, plus, and I'll go ahead and do another line break just for the fun of it. And there we have a function. So way down here at the bottom is the run. So I'm going to say run. Ooh, and it did not like that. It says I'm missing. I got a little syntax error here. So where is my syntax error? I'm missing. It says missing my semicolon before the statement function Dave test arg1 arg2 open paren var args out. And do I need one at the very end of the statement? Let's try that. Oop, that's not the right one. Gotta be missing a comma or something here. I'm going to pause for a sec. Sorry about that. I believe it is the last one. You don't need the semicolon on the very last statement, but it's still not liking it. And why are you messing up on me all of a sudden? Well, it would help if I spell the word function right. And here we go. So there we go. And that's the beauty of actually typing it yourself. And I'm going to stick with that excuse, but it just gets you to type it right. You have to relook at everything. But anyway, spelling 101. So I'm going to go ahead and, so now we have this function created, right? Let's go ahead and run it. So I'm going to get rid of that there, and let's run our function. And I'm going to run it the first time with string ABC, comma, another string. And let's see what we get with that. So I'm clicking run down here at the bottom. And look at this. Here's our string. Here's what we ran. 2 parameters. Okay. How many arguments? Parameters, arguments. So there's 2 of them. How many args is 2? And the argument tote is string ABC concatenated with another string. Notice there's no space there. So if I put a space in here and run it again, look at that. Now it puts a space in there. Let's go ahead and try it with numbers. And I'll do 33 and 87. And we'll run that. And we still have 2 arguments. And our argument total is 120. Well, what if I did 87, 44, 98, 234, test, another test. Okay, let's run that. And now if I run it, notice that it says how many arguments. It says I've got 7 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so there's 7 arguments, and the arg total, ooh, it's still 120. Well, I'm only referencing the first 2 arguments in the code, so it's only going to look at those 2. If I change this to T33, right, it should concatenate that T33 with the 87. Let's go ahead and put a space in here. And if I run that, notice that the args tot is T33 space 87. So there's our introduction. If I click on history down here and come back up to bring this up again, just so you get a chance. Here's an introduction. Here's a good little way to practice in the console how to mess with functions. Okay, so there's our intro, how to do a function. Again, if you have any questions, email me, dave@davecoast.com, or go to davecoast.com, or leave a comment or question underneath the video here. I reattached this down to the bottom here, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the actual code for a moment behind this date function intro. So let me just turn off Firebug for a moment and bring up the code. Whoops. Here's the code. Here's the chapter 6 dates JavaScript. And here's the script from chapter 7. And we'll see the difference in here. The HTML between the two are basically the same, except for putting chapter 7 into the title and changing the JavaScript that we're using to the 7 dates from the 6 dates. So let's go ahead and look at chapter 6 first of all. And the idea is we've started using this code, if you followed along, and it doesn't matter whether you did or not, but if you have been following along, almost every single exercise we've done has put the text back into the HTML using these statements right here. If the .text content method is available, place the message into that to get it into the HTML. And for browsers that don't support text content, we use the inner text. So these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 statements have been used all over the place, and that makes it a perfect opportunity for encapsulating into a function. You'll see that we have this exact same code, except for, right, this book date format, right, which is telling it where it's going to put it, right? Here's that exact same code here, only here's the formatted date method ID, right? And this is actually putting the date into these 2 HTML elements. So let's put this code into a function, and inside that function, we're going to bring this element that we're going to use as the argument. And the message text, right, is going to be the second argument. And we can use it repeatedly throughout our code. So if I go to chapter 7 text here, now we add to the very top this new function called setText. It has 2 arguments, and one we're calling the element ID, one we're calling the message text. And if the type of element ID is equal to a string and the message text is a string, then we're going to set this element out variable to the reference, and we're going to reference the HTML using the document.getElementById method. And once again, if element out, now we're using a variable name, right, as opposed to using this specific ID, right, because that's the ID that we're passing, right? If this element ID is available, right, if the text content method is available, Then we're going to put the message text, right, which came in, into that HTML element. Otherwise, if the browser does not support that, we'll use inner text and put the message text out that way. So now that we created this function called setText, we need to call it, and we call it from those same two places that it was before, only now you'll see here, right, we create that message. Now we're sending that element ID and the message that we created as arguments to our function. And now down below, once again, where's our, here it is. We've created this, right, method, right, with the string. Here's the message information, right? Formatted date method, that's our message. And here's the element ID that we wish to use. So that is our first step in utilizing functions for repeated code. And this is, now we're actually starting to do some real programming, and that's where chapter 7 functions kind of gets us rolling. So coming up in our future episodes will be these other 4 exercises. But for right now, you can see the only difference is that we're using a function to get these values out to the screen. Code will be available on davecoast.com if you wish to get it. Probably the easiest thing to do would be to go to js.davecoast.com, bring up the exercise, and use your Firebug, run it through debugger, right? If you bring it up in Firebug and bring up the script, hey, there it is. And bring up the script here. Here's the JavaScript. And for some reason, it's not showing it to me. And I think I must have messed something up. There we go. With this guy. So let me go back down into this mode. Anyway, whoops, shut it off. Let me turn it on again. Let me detach. And go to the console, return it back to its normal values. Sorry about that. That really wasn't necessary. Let me bring this back down and go back to script here. And here we are back in our normal world. And let's just make sure we bring up the JavaScript. And I'd recommend, if you wish, right, once again, here's that function, the setText function. And you can go ahead and run through debugger if you wish. Let me know if you'd like me to run through that. I'm thinking that it's not necessary with the console activity that we did before. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and turn debugger off. Here's our date format, chapter 7, function intro. We went ahead and looked at the basic syntax of a function, right? Which is the function name with the arguments in parentheses. You don't have to have arguments, but chances are you will, because they are used, because that's what makes functions so flexible. then you put your actual executable statements in between the curly braces. So once again, this is Dave at davecoast.com. Questions or comments, please let me know. Thank you very much for watching.